10 years. 10 long years since 2-year-old DeOrr Kunz Jr. vanished from the Timber Creek campground in Lemhi County on July 10, 2015. What should have been a simple family camping trip turned into America's most baffling missing child case. Picture this: a remote wilderness campground, 4 adults, 1 toddler, and in the span of 20 minutes, a little boy wearing a camouflage jacket and cowboy boots simply disappeared. No trace, no evidence, no body, just gone. But here's what makes this case truly haunting. The parents who reported their child missing, the same parents who called 911, the same parents who organized search parties, they became the prime suspects in their own son's disappearance. Mitchell and Kunz voluntarily took lie detector tests, and Sheriff Lynn Bowerman initially said investigators did not suspect foul play. But in January 2016, Bowerman named DeOrr's parents as suspects, stating they had been less than truthful in interviews and polygraph tests. Welcome to the case that has divided a nation, spawned countless theories, and left investigators questioning everything they thought they knew about missing children cases. This is the story of DeOrr Kunz Jr. DeOrr and his parents, Jessica Mitchell and Vernal DeOrr Kunz, left Idaho Falls the afternoon of July 9, 2015 for a camping trip in Lemhi County. DeOrr's great-grandfather, Robert Walton, and his friend, Isaac Reinwand, drove in a separate vehicle and met up with the young family at Timber Creek Campground, a remote area around 125 miles northwest of Idaho Falls near DeOrr. The campground wasn't your typical family destination. It was isolated, primitive. There's one road in and one road out to the remote Timber Creek Campground, the kind of place where cell phone service was spotty at best and the nearest town was miles away. DeOrr Kunz Jr. was 2 years old. He would be almost 13 this December 2025. He was described by family as a happy child who loved the outdoors. This wasn't his first camping trip. He was comfortable in nature, loved exploring, and according to his parents, he was excited about this particular adventure. The group consisted of 5 people: Jessica Mitchell, DeOrr's mother, in her mid-20s; Vernal DeOrr Kunz Sr., the father, in his 30s; Robert Walton, Jessica's grandfather, an elderly man who used a hearing aid and carried an oxygen tank; Isaac Reinwand, Walton's friend; and little DeOrr Jr., July 10, 2015. A Friday morning that started like any other camping day. The family woke up at the campsite. They cooked breakfast. The group traveled 40 minutes down the highway to the Stage Shop, a convenience store in DeOrr. DeOrr was wearing his little camouflage jacket, the same jacket that would later become a crucial piece of evidence. He had on cowboy boots that were too big for his feet and blue pajama pants. When they returned to the campsite, everything seemed normal. Jessica and Vernal decided to take a walk down to a creek area that Isaac Reinwand had shown them, a fishing spot about a 20-minute walk from the main campsite. Here's where the stories begin to diverge, and this is critical to understanding why this case became so controversial. According to Jessica and Vernal, they told Robert Walton they were leaving DeOrr with him while they went to explore the creek. According to Walton, he never heard this conversation and assumed DeOrr had gone with his parents. The parents say they were gone for about 20 minutes. When they returned, DeOrr wasn't with his great-grandfather. Walton thought he was with his parents. The parents thought he was with Walton. When they asked Walton where DeOrr was, he replied in shock, "I thought he was with you." Jessica and Vernal then asked Isaac, who was also unaware of DeOrr's whereabouts. All 4 adults started shouting the toddler's name, but soon realized that he was nowhere to be found. At 2:30 p.m., Jessica Mitchell called 911. The response was swift and massive. Frantic searches started within hours of that 911 call, with more than 170 volunteers and trained rescue teams trying to find the toddler, but no trace was ever found. Search and rescue teams combed through the wilderness. Helicopters circled overhead. Trained dogs were brought in. The FBI joined the investigation. Volunteers from across the region arrived to help search. But here's what was strange. In most missing child cases involving toddlers in wilderness areas, you find something. A piece of clothing caught on a branch, footprints in the mud, some trace that shows which direction the child went. With DeOrr, there was absolutely nothing. Sheriff Bowerman stated that if an animal had taken him, there would be evidence left behind, like DeOrr's boots that were too big for him. Bowerman believed they would have fallen off. After days and weeks of searching, not a trace of DeOrr was found at the campground. If you're watching this and you have children, I want you to pause for a moment and imagine this scenario. You're at a campground. Your child is playing. You step away for 20 minutes. You come back and they're gone. Not just hiding, not just wandering off, completely vanished without a single trace in an area that's been searched by hundreds of people. Now imagine that within months, you're not being treated as a grieving parent anymore. You're being treated as a suspect. If this story is shaking you to your core, like it did me when I first heard it, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because we're about to uncover evidence in this case that will leave you questioning everything you think you know about missing persons investigations. Initially, law enforcement treated this as a straightforward missing child case. The parents were cooperative. They voluntarily took polygraph tests. They participated in extensive interviews. But then, things started to change. Sheriff Lynn Bowerman revealed that Kunz and Mitchell had changed their story numerous times about what happened during the family camping trip on July 10th. Their timeline keeps changing, where they were at keeps changing, and movements and statements about DeOrr Jr. keep changing, Bowerman said at the time. Their statements don't match, and it's frustrating because we have absolutely no idea where DeOrr is. There have been so many inconsistencies that it's hard to tell the truth from everything they've said. The polygraph tests that the parents had voluntarily taken. Bowerman revealed that portions of polygraph tests administered to Kunz and Mitchell came back less than truthful, including questions about knowing what happened to DeOrr, why the child disappeared, and where the toddler is located. In January 2016, just 6 months after DeOrr's disappearance, Sheriff Lynn Bowerman officially named DeOrr's parents as suspects, stating they had been less than truthful in interviews and polygraph tests. Remember that trip to the Stage Shop convenience store on the morning DeOrr disappeared? This became a crucial point in the investigation. The family claimed the store clerk witnessed Mitchell and Kunz Sr. with their son around 1 p.m. However, when questioned later, the clerk stated they saw a blond boy at 6 p.m. that night, not 1 p.m., the time the parents had given to police in their reports. Vernal Kunz later stated the clerk was mistaken, a claim that has been questioned by investigators. This discrepancy might seem minor, but in a missing person case, timeline is everything. If the parents were wrong about when they visited the store, what else might they be wrong about? If they were deliberately lying about the timeline, why? What happened next turned this case from a missing child investigation into something resembling a true crime thriller. The family hired their first private investigator, Frank Vilt. Initially, Vilt believed DeOrr had been abducted, but in early 2016, he ended his involvement and publicly stated that Kunz and Mitchell had lied about their son's disappearance. Vilt died in August 2023. Then came Philip Klein from Klein Investigations and Consulting in Texas. Klein would become the most controversial figure in this entire case. Klein didn't just investigate the case, he made explosive public statements about it. Klein concluded DeOrr was the victim of an accidental homicide and that Mitchell and Kunz were involved. But here's where it gets really bizarre. Klein was hired by the parents to find their missing son. The same parents who were paying him eventually fired him because of his accusations against them. In 2019, Klein made a discovery that sent shockwaves through the true crime community. Klein's team searched leftover furniture and clothing at an apartment complex in Idaho Falls after the couple was evicted for not paying rent. The landlord gave investigators permission to search the abandoned property. What they found was explosive. 4 matchbox cars that were previously described by the parents as missing, as well as a camouflage jacket that the boy's parents said he was wearing on the day he went missing. Let that sink in. The camouflage jacket that DeOrr was supposedly wearing when he disappeared, The jacket his parents described to police, the jacket that should have been somewhere in the wilderness if he had wandered off or been taken by an animal, was found in his parents' abandoned apartment. How do you explain that? If your child disappears wearing a jacket in the wilderness, how does that jacket end up back in your apartment? The case took another dramatic turn in 2019, when the current private investigator David Marshburn brought cadaver dogs to the campground. Marshburn's dogs are trained only with human cadavers, human bone and teeth, so they only alert to human remains. The dogs are also trained to detect remains up to 6 feet underground. Marshburn reported that one of his dogs went to the water and suddenly dashed to a specific spot. Our oldest dog, Kaz, the way he alerts, he lays down. He just lays down on the spot. Now it can be a foot over, a foot here, or a foot in front, but he lays on the strongest scent. But here's what made this discovery even more significant. After Marshburn's dogs alerted, Sheriff Penner brought in an independent cadaver dog, which also alerted on the same area of the campground. 2 different cadaver dogs from different handlers alerting on the same spot. In cadaver dog work, that's about as close to confirmation as you can get. There's another piece of this puzzle that often gets overlooked, but is absolutely crucial. Isaac Reinwand, Robert Walton's friend, who was at the campground that day. According to the Justice for Baby DeOrr group, Isaac Factory reset his phone 3 times before law enforcement arrived at the scene. 3 times. Who does that? What was he trying to hide that he wanted no one to see? Investigators have also questioned what Reinwand was doing with a shovel that weekend, and whether he knows more about DeOrr's whereabouts than he's admitted. Here's something most people following this case don't know about. There's been a recent development in 2024 that could change everything. David Marshburn returned to the site with friends and climbed a challenging route up the nearby mountain, where he discovered new evidence, another jacket. This jacket was manufactured in 2014 or early 2015, the same time frame as DeOrr's disappearance. Lemhi County Sheriff John Bennett turned the jacket over to the Idaho State Police Lab in late 2024 for DNA comparison. However, investigators were told only a partial DNA profile was obtained, and due to low-level results and limited DNA, no conclusion could be made. As of December 2024, this case remains unsolved. No arrests have been made. No charges have been filed. DeOrr Kunz Jr. would be almost 13 years old today. The investigation has been marked by bitter legal battles. In December 2024, the leaders of a controversial Facebook group called Justice for DeOrr settled a libel lawsuit with Vernal Kunz, the father. The group had been spreading theories online that Vernal was involved in his son's disappearance. Vernal's attorney, Alan Browning, says his client 1,000% had nothing to do with his son's disappearance, and that the online harassment pushed Vernal to the point of near suicide. Philip Klein was recently rehired by an anonymous family member to continue investigating the case after being off it for several years, due to the major falling out with the parents. Before we get to my analysis of what I think really happened here, I need you to do something. Look at the comments section right now and tell me what your theory is. Do you think the parents are involved? Do you think this was a tragic accident that spiraled out of control? Or do you believe DeOrr really did just vanish without a trace? Hit that like button if you think there's more to this story than meets the eye, because what I'm about to tell you next will blow your mind. Current and former Lemhi County sheriffs continue following up on tips and leads in the case. Investigators have 3 main theories about what happened. DeOrr was taken by a stranger, there was foul play involving people he was camping with, or nature took him, meaning he walked off or an animal attacked him. Law enforcement has said the kidnapping theory seems the least likely. Here's what we know for certain. Robert Walton, DeOrr's great-grandfather, died in June 2019, taking whatever knowledge he had to his grave. Isaac Reinwand, when contacted recently, said he was trying to put this behind him and move forward. Over the years, bones have been found at the campsite. Investigators send photos to anthropologists at Idaho State University, and in each case, they've turned out to be animal remains. In one instance, a bone was sent to the FBI in Quantico, Virginia, for testing, but again, it was from an animal. Current Sheriff Steve Penner and Sheriff John Bennett do not consider Mitchell and Kunz suspects. Rather, they say everyone at the campsite that day is a person of interest because they were the last people to see DeOrr. Through all of this chaos, legal battles and accusations, there's one voice that cuts through everything: DeOrr's grandmother, Trina Clegg. In her statement on behalf of DeOrr's mother, Jessica Mitchell, she wrote, "As a family, we still pray every day for an answer to what happened 10 years ago that still haunts us with heartfelt pain and grief, missing our sweet baby DeOrr. It is still the same from day one. The fact remains the same. Baby DeOrr is still missing, and there has been zero evidence of how at this time. Jessica Mitchell, through her mother, said the pain of each day still feels the same as the day DeOrr went missing. 10 years later, we're left with more questions than answers. A camouflage jacket found in an abandoned apartment. Cadaver dogs alerting to human remains. Failed polygraph tests, changing stories. A phone wiped clean 3 times before police arrived. But somewhere in all of this confusion, chaos, and controversy, there's a little boy who would be turning 13 this December. A little boy who loved camping, who loved the outdoors, who trusted the adults around him to keep him safe. Whether this was a tragic accident that spiraled into a cover-up, whether it was something more deliberate, or whether DeOrr really did just vanish into the Idaho wilderness, one thing remains constant: a family destroyed, a community divided, and a child who deserves justice. If you have any information about this case, please contact the Lemhi County Sheriff's Office at 208-756-8980. If this case has affected you the way it's affected me, please subscribe to this channel. We dive deep into cases like this that challenge everything we think we know about missing persons investigations. Hit that notification bell because we're not stopping until we find answers for families like DeOrr's. And remember, someone, somewhere, knows what happened to DeOrr Kunz Jr. The truth always comes out eventually. The question is, will it come out in time for his family to finally have the closure they deserve? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next investigation.